Okay. Okay, I'm back on. I had a request to make noodles, and there's all kinds of ways you can make noodles. I make them different a lot, like different ways. They all come out good, but this one here, this recipe here, I had in a little book, and it was put away for years. Back, I think, when I worked for Rio Grande coordinator for senior citizens. I think I had it then and took that recipe from an elderly lady. So I'm going to do this one because this one, it's supposed to be good to dry and freeze quickly. So, hi Pamela. So, I'm just going to go by the recipe. It says 2 large eggs. So we're going to do that. I'm going to use this pretty bowl that my friend got me years ago, Jackie. And I'm just going to put them 2 large eggs in the bowl. I'm going to follow that recipe. Now, I can remember making them a long time ago. So, I don't like anything. I always check the eggs out. If there's anything, like anything in them, I get it out of there. Anyway, I got the 2 eggs in there. And I'm just going by, this says Aunt Velma's, so evidently I got it from somebody at the senior building years ago that had a recipe for Aunt Velma. And I think I was asking, I would like to freeze some. So I'm going to go ahead and do this recipe and we'll try it and see. But you're just supposed to, it says to mix up. This is a little different than the noodles that I always make, but they're supposed to be good and easy to freeze. So I'm going to mix them eggs up really good. It says 2 large eggs. So we got that 2 large eggs there. Okay, now it says 1 tablespoon of melted butter. Now, I thought that was a little different right there. But we'll just go ahead. I melted some butter in my Tupperware little 1-cup pitcher. You can put it in the microwave really good. So we got 1 tablespoon there. And when it comes to butter, I always add just a little more. Okay, now we got that. We're going to mix that butter into that. The 2 eggs and butter. Now you know that that butter has to give it a nice little flavor there. So, got that mixed in. We'll see what Aunt Velma's noodles, whoever she is, come out to be, okay? So we got that mixed up. Now it says 1 1/4 cup of flour, and you're gonna think it's funny unless you've made all kinds of noodles. That this next, the next ingredient that I'm supposed to add. Okay, get my Tupperware thing here. 1 1/4 cup. So this is 1 cup. I always leave. I've got some of these measuring cups, several things of them from Tupperware, so I always leave one right down my flour. So there's 1 cup, and we'll just eyeball it. Okay, that would be 1/4. Okay, it says mix well the butter and eggs, add flour, and here is the thing I thought was really different. Baking powder. I've never put baking powder in noodles. Only that one time years ago, I can vaguely remember making that recipe. I couldn't wait to make it because I wanted to freeze them. So, we put 1/4 teaspoon. That's all you put. And this is 1/4 teaspoon. It does something, but we'll see what it does. I want to make sure that don't go over. So there's 1/4 teaspoon. When I make someone else's recipes, I do it like it says, because they know what they're doing. So now, and a pinch of salt. So we'll just put that. Okay, we're going to mix this a little bit and knead it. This is probably not going to make a whole lot, but it's a good one to see if it's going to work good, and you could double it. So I think it's getting to where I can knead it a little bit. You just take that flour around the edges. I mean, I've got a KitchenAid mixer. I've got all kinds of Tupperware stuff, but I like to do this. It's just, it makes it fun making noodles. So we'll just pinch that. That's what it says. The old recipe says pinch together with your fingers for a few minutes. So, hi Dot. Well, Colette, this might be a good one for you to make then. Depends on how many you're making for. Usually when I used to make them, I had to make them for half a town, I think. But this is going to be good just to make a batch to see how Aunt Velma's noodles does. So I'm just pinching them like she said. I'm trying to incorporate all that flour and butter that was in there. Let me get this down in there. See, it's coming together good. Trying to incorporate the little pieces that's fallen off too. You don't want to. So see how easy it was so far, and how it's coming together so nicely. So Aunt Velma, whoever she was, had her own recipe here, and I got a hold of it some way. I don't know how. Everywhere I go, or everywhere I've worked or anything, I've always, for years, the last 30 years, I've got recipes off of people. So I think that's good. Now I'll just work this with my fingers like it says. I'll put this over here now. And I got this. I took a little bleach water and bleached everything down, and that's why it took me a while. I had to let it dry. Okay. Now we're just pinching that with our fingers. Okay. Now, this Aunt Velma, she said we kneaded it with our fingers for a few minutes. It says divide dough in 3 parts. So we're going to divide the dough in 3 parts. Go 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to have 3 little balls of dough. And if I can remember right, it's been so many years, this is good, that is good to freeze. And if it is, I'm going to go ahead and probably, after I get off here, just make a couple more batches of it. So right now we've got this, and see how nice, it even looks sort of like a bread roll. But it's a noodle, a ball, a noodle, see? So, okay. So now that I got that done, I'll move this stuff on down the line here. See, I brought water just in case, but didn't need it. Aunt Velma knew what she was talking about. Okay. So I'm going to move that stuff down. And we're going to roll these little balls out. Let me put this in here. There we go. Now, I'm going to put just a little bit of flour because that's all I know to do. I've always put flour on to roll things out. Maybe you don't need it. I don't know. Get it? Need it? But I'm just going to put it on here like this. Now, she said, whoever she was, that you're supposed to roll each part out very thin. Very thin. So, I'm going to roll them out. Every time I get dough on me, it itches me. Okay, so here's the one third of that dough. Isn't that funny how things just come together so nicely? So when she's talking about thin, she meant thin. Now, some of you guys might like to make your noodles thick, but I suggest you do sprinkle with flour every once in a while. You might make your noodles thick. My mom used to make a thick square and called it Popeye. Have you ever heard of Popeye? Called it chicken Popeye. Not pot pie, Popeye. Like Popeye the Sailor Man. We liked it. And that's the way she always made them. She never made them any other way. So I'm going to roll this out real thin. Like Aunt Velma said. See how nice this is rolling out? It's just really nice. It's not sticking. That's something. So I want to show you how it's not sticking, but I'm still going to put a little bit there. It's not going to hurt it a bit. See how thin that is? You're just supposed to do it real thin. Now, I know you guys will be wanting to make some of these because they're so easy. But what I used to do is, well, most of the time, I would take the noodle and make the egg and flour and all that, and I'd put a little bit of water in it because the water made them to where they wasn't so gummy and chewy. And then I would put some of my chicken bouillon that I buy from down at the Mennonite store. But that's not what we're doing right now. So that's the way I usually make them. We can do that sometime too. But this here is supposed to be one that you can roll out real thin, cut it, and it'll be dry in no time. And then you could freeze them in freezer bags. And when somebody comes over, Colette, just get your broth boiling, and when it comes to boil, throw them frozen. Do not take a noodle out and let it sit. That's what I've done when I was a young mother and wife. Someone gave me frozen noodles and said, here, you can make these because you don't know how to make them yet. And I took them out of the freezer. And I let them sit on the counter to thaw out because I thought you were supposed to let them thaw out. No. If you freeze noodles and they're already dry and stuff, that's okay, but this wasn't. And I had a big glob of mess, is what I had. So we're getting back to these. I'm sorry I took you down that trail there. So you can see how thin. I think Aunt Thelma would be happy with the thinness of this because look how that just lays there. Look how quick. Look how quick that came together. Beautiful. I love working with dough. So now, this is the way my husband always does mine. Sometimes I let him cut mine. With this, I'm not going to have to cut it a certain way. So, they're thin now. I think Aunt Thelma, whoever she is probably saying that's a good job. Sounds like she was prepared for company. Okay, now that's real thin pizza cutter. If you roll them, knife. But we do them with a pizza cutter because we can manage how we want them, okay? So I'm just going to take around the edges here and make that kind of even. That can still be a noodle, which I already have a cookie sheet to lay these out. That sun's in my eye. It's coming right in the... Thank God for the sun. Anyway, I'm going to see how long you want them. Yeah, it is a funny story. It wasn't funny that day, Colette, because I didn't have any noodles. But I told my sister-in-law, I said, them noodles you gave me, they're not any good. I took them out and got them ready, and they wasn't. She said, you didn't have to get them ready. You're supposed to just boil your stuff and put them in there. She said, you did it wrong. Right, I did it wrong. So I think maybe we'll go halfway down through there. And then see here, you just cut them however wide you want them. And by the way, I have done gluten-free for my granddaughter. She's really been wanting some because I didn't do any for Christmas this year or anything, or Thanksgiving. So I've got them about that wide, but they can go, you can do them thinner, or less wide, I guess you call it. And just cut them down like that with a pizza cutter. Now you're seeing how easy these are. I got that one too thin. Everybody knows the only kind of noodles you can get straight is the ones from manufactured. Anyway, let's see. Now we'll do that. I'm left-handed, so we'll just keep cutting them like that. Now Aunt Velma's recipe on this paper says you let them dry for 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm going to let them dry for an hour and see how they do. I'll look in 30 and 40 like Aunt Velma said. But I want to let them dry good. And I'm loving this because it's so much easier. And I hate buying noodles already made. Like, even the reams, my sister buys the reams and she makes them good. But there's something about the homemade noodles that really are good when you make them fresh. So I'm just going to make this a little bit thinner. The ones that I got thick. And I'm thinking with this recipe of noodles, you can make Johnny Marzetti, or it would really be good. Okay, so we only got two little places that's not real even. So now, them are really thin. And we'll see how many we get out of these. Usually I just throw them on there and let them. And this way you don't have a lot of extra flour. I always floured mine and always had that extra lots of flour. I think these are really going to be good. I'll dry them tonight and put them in the freezer. And then I will get my chicken out for tomorrow and we'll make chicken noodles tomorrow night. So I'm just kind of doing this. Just kind of stacking them. And they're so light that you can just throw them on there. And this is the way that the gluten-free noodles look when I do them. They're more of a perfect looking noodle. So I'm just going to throw them on there, and they're so thin, I know that one I can tell is not as thin as the other ones. That's a big noodle too. With noodles, you don't have to really explain yourself. You just do them and everybody likes them. That's all I know. Okay, now put that, see here, we got some noodles on, sliding. And then we got 2 more dough balls to make. Johnny Marzetti, Amy, something my mom used to make. You take, well, while I'm rolling this out, I'll tell you. You take noodles and you make them. You can make store-bought ones or whatever. Usually you use an egg noodle, and that's what these are. And you take ground chuck or hamburger and make it, you know, fry it up with you can put onions in it, you don't have to. And put that in there, and tomato sauce and my mom always put Colby cheese in it. Oh, so good. You had a pot of Marzetti. She called it Johnny Marzetti. When it was spaghetti and Marzetti day, I always made sure I got home. We lived in Lancaster, Ohio, and that's where Mount Pleasant is, the great big mountain. And I can remember from the time I was 7, 8 years old, I'd go walk clear out there and climb that mountain myself. And then my sister and brother would too. And I always made sure I didn't do that on them days. See, this is thin too. So this is something, if you had a little time, you didn't know what to do, just make up some dough and dry it, put it in bags, and put it in the freezer. And when I don't have a seal thing, I used to have one, but I end up wearing it out. I just take a Ziploc bag and zip that and put a straw in it and zip that up to the straw and suck in, and it takes all that air out of your bag. And then you hurry up and clip it, and you don't have any air in your bag, and your food will stay longer. You don't have to have a big fancy. I used to have Braden do it for me. He always sucked it up in there, and he had a ball doing it. So, okay. So did you understand what, Amy, what Johnny Marzetti seems to be? A lot of people probably say it's different and do it differently. So this is really thin. And I'm going to start doing it this way where I can see because I'm left-handed. So, I mean, how easy is that? Such a beautiful dough with 2 eggs, tablespoon of butter, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and flour. Beautiful dough for that. That's why I like to have flour and eggs and stuff in my house. Okay, we're cutting them up. My granddaughter's getting out of National Guards in February. She's went through all her hard training and all that. And her and my granddaughter, Abriana, their favorite thing is the noodles, Grandma's noodles. Okay, so we're just going to put these on there too. They're not sticking, see? They're already dry enough to where you don't have to put any extra flour on your sheet. That's a double one there. Let's see, maybe I could do this a better way. There we go. There's your stack of noodles within seconds instead of picking them up individually. I just used my, whatever you call this thing. I've cut bread dough and everything with it. So I'll put that on there and just kind of spread them out there a little bit. Guys, I can't help it. I've got to taste one of these. I'm still alive, and I used to steal them off my mom's table all the time when she made noodles. She'd have a whole table full, and I'd run through the house and grab them and eat them. She knew what I was doing. Never forget the taste of that. It's really good. These are really good. You could probably just fix these without any broth, and they'd be good butter noodles or, you know. So now, we got the other little ball done, and it's starting to make quite a bit of noodles for that little bit of stuff we used. Yeah, you could take these noodles and do your water, salt your water, and you could make butter parsley noodles or anything. You don't have to have chicken and all that in it. So I just want to make sure two isn't laying on top of each other. They won't dry as easy. Sorry about that. So far we got this out of two. 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, a pinch of salt, and melted butter. So now let's do the third one. Oops, there's a couple little stray noodles I can put in there. I don't want to waste any of them. There's a wee little piece. I should get it, shouldn't I? They're even good like this, but I don't suggest it to anybody. Okay, so we got the third little ball. I'll roll it out. When I get off here, I think I'm going to make another batch, and that way I'll have plenty of noodles. Plenty. Keep freezing them, we'll have plenty. I got an extra refrigerator in the back with a freezer, so in case I do things like this. That's pretty thin, I think. Yeah, that's pretty thin. See, that just doesn't even stick. See how thin that is? It's almost like one of them thin crust pizzas dough. I just want to see how much this makes for this. This is fun too, just sprinkling. Okay, we got another. I can almost see through that. Almost. Not quite, but it's thin enough. Now the sun's coming in on me. I'm not going to complain. Okay, now I'm just going to take and cut this down like that. I think Aunt Velma really knew what she was talking about, whoever she was. I bet she had some really good noodles. My husband will dig out recipes I had for a long time. He said, "Did you forget about this one?" In other words, will you make this one? And I don't mind. Okay, so we got another stack of noodles. And I will use this. If you just hold them delicately, you'll do fine. See how pretty them are? I am just amazed at how beautiful things come out with just a little tiny bit of effort. I mean, I'd rather do this. It's really a lot cheaper than going in the store and buying something. And you know you put your time into it. And it makes about a cookie 15 by something 10 cookie sheet full of them. I'm so glad he found this recipe because it's a lot easier than the other one. And it looks like they're going to be better. Taste better. You may have to make a couple batches depending on how many people you're going to feed. But if you make them up ahead of time, you got them in the freezer, you don't have no worries. Okay. So, well, that one's just a little bit smaller. They're good like this. Okay, Pam. Here we are. That's Aunt Velma, whoever she is. I know I've said that probably, 10 times? And if you can remember, if you're out there and you remember giving me this recipe, you'll know who Aunt Velma is. Actually, I done a recipe the other day, and this woman wrote me from somewhere, and I didn't even know her. And it was the same recipe. I got the recipe off the woman that gave it to me and made for her, their grandma or somebody. So it was really awesome. Yes. This can be used for lasagna. And I had a lady, well, she passed away, but she had 12 kids. And I lived across the creek from her, and I used to watch her. And I was pregnant for my first one. Well, I was pregnant for my second one. And she'd have a line all the way around her yard and have clothes hung up all on wash day. But she told me that I should make my lasagna noodles basically like this. She said, "Have you ever tried lasagna?" And I said, "I just can't see lasagna being good with homemade noodles." She said, "Oh, it's better." So I'd suggest to you, you would probably have to make 3 batches, which would be cheap. 6 eggs, flour, put it in there the way it says and then go back the way it says again 3 times. You could cut them, make them thin though. Make them real thin like this. And then you could do your lasagna like that. And it's going to bake in there with your sauce. So you don't even have to do anything to them. She said just put them in there and put your sauce on it and stuff like that. So I might try that because we all love lasagna around here. So that's it right there. Them pretty. Let me hold on to this so I won't throw it in your face. Whoops, didn't hold very good. See how loose and light they are? So I'll just move some of these over. And I think when we get off of here, I'm going to make another batch. So I'll have a couple batches of them. And now that you mentioned lasagna, I may make some for lasagna too. I made cheesy potatoes with bacon bits tonight for the family and potato salad. So, anyway, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot all about her telling me that when I was a young mama. If you guys have any certain recipes or anything, I'd like to try them. I mean, I'm not too proud to say someone else did them. You know, I didn't know anything about cooking hardly. And all my learning came from people who knew how to cook. Okay. My husband cooked some fried potatoes and corn and green beans. He put a little thing of green beans, a little thing of corn, and fried potatoes, and I ate them. I told him, I said, I love it when you cook because it tastes so good. Someone else's cooking always tastes so good that you get a break, you know. Are you going to make it? Are you going to make some lasagna that way? I can post the recipe down under for you to make these. I've showed you how, and they're fun. They come together so nicely. And did I mention I love when you guys are on here? It just makes my day. It makes my day to have friends that I've never met and to share with. And, you know, I keep begging everybody, do something live, let me see it. But I'm also on YouTube under Pamela's, it's under Pamela McManus, but it's Pamela's Pantry Perfections. So I'm on that too, and I have some different recipes on there. So if you go on there, you might share it or share this so we can get together as groups and cook and have a good time. So there we are. I love you all. Colette. Oh, thank you, Colette. Agree with you there. Oh, now, Colette. I'm not a spicy person, but my youngest son is all about buffalo, this and that, and so is my daughter. And so, yes, I would like to have some recipes because poor people, poor kids, my adult kids, they never get anything spicy when they come to my house because I just don't know how to do it. I've never done it before. And he's always gone to buffalo wings. I think it's called buffalo wings, and getting him some buffalo wings. So, and I'd love to have some recipes and just surprise him. Surprise him sometimes. Hey, look what I got. It's not bland, it's spicy. So thank you. If you can come up with a recipe to send me, I'd love that. Okay. Because a lot of times people say, well, that's not hot. And I try it and I'm like, my nose is running and everything else. But anyway, I could stay on here all night, but I better not. I just enjoy your company. If you ever come down to Ohio, I live in a little town called MacArthur, and I'm always about cooking, always about people. I love people. So anyway, God bless you. Our family, our children are grown. They have families of their own. And so they're very busy. They all work, you know, in different fields. My oldest son works for the Job and Family Service. He's over Ohio and has to travel. My youngest son is a behavior specialist. and I don't know how to act around him, because have you ever been around a psychologist or something and you don't know how to act because you know they're probably reading you? Yeah. So I just try to be mellow. And my daughter, she works for senior citizens. She's a cook. So she really loves the elderly and things like that. And that's what I did too. I always loved the elderly, and I'd sit with them and that was my other job, is sitting with them, listening to their stories. I loved listening to the older people. Oh my gosh, I found out things I never knew. Things about people I know that I didn't know, but I had this one woman, she was so sweet. Her name was Rosie. And all I had to do was walk up over the hill, and I'd sit at the table all the time I was there unless I took her to the bathroom. She wouldn't let me do anything. She just wanted me to sit there with her, make sure she got the bathroom. And my husband had some really old papers like 1900s from Benton County. It was called the Tribune or something then. And I'd take them up to her, and they was just old. They was this, real wide. Now they're not. But she'd open that up with her hands like that. And I'd always make sure she had water. If her water or coffee got down, you knew to get up and get it. And a lot of times she pushed that paper down, and I was going through college then. I think I started college when I was 52 or something like that. And I was going through college, and she'd put that paper down and look at me. Rosie always had a grin, and I never forgot that. That's my husband's scanner. It does that every once in a while. I think somebody's giving us messages somewhere. But anyway, she would always look at me and go, always smiled at me. And now every time I go somewhere, I smile at people, because I've learned so much from sitting with the elderly. There's so much wisdom. So anyway, God bless you. And if you want me to make anything else, I could do the eclair cake tomorrow afternoon. And that thing's not going to shut up until I go shut it up. We have scanners all through the house. Every room my husband goes in, he likes a scanner. So that's his thing. Anyway, I love you all. And I'm so glad that you came on, and we'll talk later. And let me know what you want to make, and we'll do it. So God bless you. Have a good evening.